Hi there, I'm Nathan Egan, and welcome back to the Working Actors Journey Rehearsal Room. We've been working on a couple scenes from Shakespeare's Macbeth this month, and we are wrapping up things with this fourth session. If you've been following along, watching the sessions, I hope you've enjoyed everything you've seen thus far. If you have questions and comments for the actors and artists you see here, drop a question below, comment below. We'd love to, hear from you and try to respond to the best of our ability. If you enjoy what you're seeing, hit that like button, subscribe so that you can follow along and be the first to know of next sessions that are coming out. And tonight may be called the final session of this workshop, but what you'll see tonight is not meant to be a final performance. It's rather just a continued work in progress. This is just the next step of the work the actors and all the artists have been doing. So I do want to mention coming up next in November 2024, we're doing a replay from our archive of The Winter's Tale, Shakespeare's The Winter's Tale. We're doing a couple scenes with Jeffrey Wade directing. It was a great session we did in 2023. Really excited to be able to release it and share it on all platforms with everybody for all to enjoy. So again, be sure to subscribe to our channel, click for notifications. You can support the project via Patreon and get early access to all the sessions, plus a few other perks starting at just $5 per month. Thank you to our patrons, Ivar, Jaelyn, Joan, Michele, Jim, Magdalen, Claudia, Clif, and Jeff. That is great. Thank you very much for all your support there. I'm going to disappear and let everybody do the work, and maybe a very quick round of introductions for if people are tuning in for the first time for this session. And then I will show up towards the end and we can do a little Q&A. So hope you guys have a great session. Enjoy, and I'll talk to you later.
Thank you, sir. Hi, everyone. My name is Nick Cagle. I'm honored to be here with two close friends of mine, Mark and Meaghan, directing scenes 1-5 and 2-2 from one of my favorite plays, Macbeth. And I've had a long relationship with this play, and I have longed to see the two actors that I'm currently working with perform this. Could you guys introduce yourselves, starting with Meaghan, please?
Hi, I am Meaghan Boeing. I have known Nick for a gazillion years and also knew Mark way back in the day, back in Boston when I was right out of school. So we haven't seen each other in 20 years, which is really fun. Yeah, I'm an actor and a musician and an educator and a writer, and I love doing this stuff.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Mark Lawson, and I can echo what you both have said because I've known you both equally about as long. So I'm an actor, writer, stay-at-home dad. So this is a pleasant escape for a couple hours a week for the last month. Maybe not pleasant. Maybe nutritious.
So pleasant.
I'll say nutritious.
But it's the right time of year to do this one. It's we've got Halloween coming up. It's the fall is here. It's been rainy and cloudy where I am. It feels perfect for this right now. And congratulations, we've made it to finals day. We've had 3 weeks. We've talked about the verse, we've talked about the poetry, we've talked about intention, we've talked about author's intention, and the play itself and the characters. And now we've come to a day when we just get to play and we get to perform. It's tech day. Do you all have your fog machines ready? Nathan, do we have fog machines?
We do. And I only wanted to pop back in to say that our wonderful dramaturg Gideon Rappaport, we had to kind of reschedule some dates, and he wasn't able to attend. So we're very sorry. We deeply miss him as part of this session, but he's been a great presence throughout. If you haven't checked out all the sessions or the other sessions with him, please, he has so much to share, and you have so much to learn from him. So unfortunately, he couldn't be with us tonight, but I know we're in good hands with the rest of the team. So, all right, I promise that's it for me. I'll run back to the back of the theater.
And we'll search for fog machines.
Gideon,
we miss you, sir. I'm sure that Gideon is watching and here in spirit, and he has given us a lot to think about and a lot to talk about. It's great to have a dramaturg on board with this, and I encourage the audience, anybody who's watching, if you have a script, grab it and open it up to scene. We're going to start with 1-5, right? 1-7, 1-7. We'll do 1-7. We're going to talk a little bit about 1-5 today too. If we have, do you have a copy of 1-5 over there, Mark? You got
Sure.
like a, yeah. I thought we'd check out the scenes that surround the scenes that we're working on a little bit. Then we'll have sort of a dress rehearsal, give some notes, and then just let it fly. If that's okay with you guys.
Yeah.
Do you guys have scripts that you can open up to sort of let's see. I think we want to look at the letter. It'd be neat to hear Lady Macbeth receives a letter from Macbeth that's sort of telling her the story of what's happened to him on the road. And this letter kind of kicks off the play in a way. It kicks off the actions that we're about to explore today. Do you guys want to take a look at that letter and that little speech that she gives, Meaghan?
Sure. That's all I have. Do I need the rest of it? I can pull it up if I need to.
Why don't we just read that for now and see
Okay,
what we can
perfect.
pull out of it, and then if we want to take a peek at something else later, we will.
Okay, cool.
Mhm.
They met me in the day of success, and I have learned by the perfectest report they have more in them than mortal knowledge. When I burned in desire to question them further, they made themselves air, into which they vanished. Whilst I stood wrapped in the wonder of it, came missives from the king, who all hailed me Thane of Cawdor, by which title before these weird sisters saluted me, and referred me to the coming on of time with Hail, King that shalt be. This have I thought good to deliver thee, my dearest partner of greatness, that thou mightst not lose the dues of rejoicing by being ignorant of what greatness is promised thee. Lay it to thy heart, and farewell. Glamis thou art, and Cawdor, and shalt be what thou art promised. Yet do I fear thy nature. It is too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way. Thou wouldst be great, art not without ambition, but without the illness should attend it. What thou wouldst highly, that wouldst thou holily. Wouldst not play false, and yet wouldst wrongly win. Thou wouldst have great Glamis, that which cries thus thou must do, if thou have it, and that which rather thou dost fear to do than wish should be undone. Hie thee hither, that I may pour my spirits in your ear, and chastise with the valor of my tongue all that impedes thee from the golden round, which fate and metaphysical aid doth seem to have thee crowned withal.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm so happy we just recorded that.
Ah!
Fantastic. I put a little heart next to where my dearest partner of greatness.
It's
And you
one
did
of
a
my
little,
favorite.
she got excited there.
I think one of the things about this that's really important is that you see how much they love each other.
Yeah.
You know, like it has to be like, I think I erred a little on too much on that side. I was playing with something during the monologue. There was a couple of things I wish that I would do differently, but I do feel like there's like this, it's got to be this excitement because we've seen the thing already. So the reason he's giving us a letter is not to tell us what's happened because we just saw it all. The reason is to set up what she feels about it and to set up their partnership.
Yeah, and it's important here. It stuck out when I heard you reading it that where she says, yet do I fear thy nature, it is too full of the milk of human kindness. That gives us an interesting clue about
Right.
Macbeth's character, right?
Right, because we've just seen like battle-hardened, warrior Macbeth.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's like, oh no, you're a good guy.
That's a very powerful line that the audience needs to remember for the rest of the play, that, it gives
Right.
this dark character, this inch of humanity, and And it's so brilliant because it comes from his love. It comes from the person that knows him the best in the world,
Mm.
you know. Very interesting. So she receives that letter, and then a messenger comes in, and the messenger says that the king is gonna crash at their pad tonight, right? And she devises a plan, essentially. Wouldn't
Yeah,
you say? She comes
yeah.
up with this plot to put to put Macbeth and herself in a powerful position. Um, that's beautiful. I think what I would like to do, what would be interesting, and tell me what you guys think of this. How do you feel if we read our two scenes that we're working on all the way through, and then discuss just, we've done all the work as far, well, there's plenty, you could never stop doing work with the text, but let's just talk about acting choices and talk about what you guys would like to do with characters and um, you know, let our audience see how that process works.
Sure.
Does that sound like something fun? Okay, I'll
Yes.
disappear and let you guys, and then I'm going to take some notes and we'll thrash them about afterwards. Break legs.
Thank you. If it were done when 'tis done, and 'twere well it were done quickly. If the assassination could trammel up the consequence and catch with his surcease success, that but this blow might be the be-all and the end-all here. But here, upon this bank and shoal of time, we jump the life to come. But in these cases we still have judgment here, that we but teach bloody instructions, which being taught return to plague the inventor. This even-handed justice commends the ingredients of our poison chalice to our own lips. He's here in double trust. First, as I am his kinsman and his subject, strong both against the deed, then as his host, who should against his murderer shut the door, not bear the knife myself. Besides this, Duncan hath borne his faculties so meek, hath been so clear in his great office that his virtues will plead like angels trumpet-tongued against the deep damnation of his taking off. And pity, like a naked newborn babe striding the blast, or heaven's cherubim horsed upon the sightless couriers of the air, shall blow the horrid deed in every eye, that tears shall drown the wind. I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition, which o'erleaps itself and falls on the... How now? What news?
He has almost supped. Why have you left the chamber?
Hath he asked for me?
No, you not he has.
We will proceed no further in this business. He hath honored me of late, and I have bought golden opinions from all sorts of people, which should be worn now in their newest gloss, not cast aside so soon.
Was the hope drunk wherein you dressed yourself? Hath it slept since? And wakes it now to look so green and pale at what it did so freely? From this time, thus I account thy love. Art thou afeard to be the same in thine own act and valor as thou art in desire? Wouldst thou have that which thou esteemst the ornament of life, and live a coward in thine own esteem, letting I dare not wait upon I would like the poor cat in the adage?
Prithee, peace. I dare do all that may become a man. Who dares do more is none.
What beast was then that made you break this enterprise to me? When you durst do it, then you were a man. And to be more than what you were, you would be so much more the man. Nor time nor place did then adhere, and yet you would make both. They have made themselves, and that their fitness now does unmake you. I have given suck, and know how tender 'tis to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from his boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you have done to this.
We should fail.
We fail. But screw your courage to the sticking place, and we'll not fail. When Duncan is asleep, whereto the rather shall his day's hard journey soundly invite him, his two chamberlains will I with wine and wassail so convince that memory, the warder of the brain, shall be a fume, and the receipt of reason a limbeck only. When in swinish sleep their drenched nature lies as in a death, what cannot you and I perform upon the unguarded Duncan? What not put upon his spongy officers, who shall bear the guilt of our great quell?
Bring forth men, children only. For thy undaunted metal should compose nothing but males. Let not be received when we have marked with blood those sleepy two of his chamber and used their very daggers that they have done.
Who dares receive it other, as we shall make our griefs and clamor roar upon his death?
I am settled, and bend up each corporal agent to this terrible feat. Away, and mock the time with fairest show. False face must hide what the false heart doth know.
That which hath made them drunk hath made me bold. What hath quenched them hath given me fire. Hark, peace. It's the owl that shrieked, the fatal bellman that gives the sternest good night. He is about it. The doors are open, and the surfeited grooms do mock their charge with snores. I have drugged their possets, that death and nature do contend about them whether they live or die.
Who's there? What? Ho!
Alack, I am afraid they have awaked, and it is not done. The attempt and not the deed confounds us. Hark, I laid their daggers ready, he could not miss them. Had he not resembled my father as he slept, I had done it. My husband.
I have done the deed. Didst thou not hear a noise?
I heard the owl scream and the cricket cry.
When?
Did not you speak?
When?
No.
As I descended.
I.
Who lies in the second chamber?
Donalbain.
This is a sorry sight.
A foolish thought to say a sorry sight.
This one did laugh and sleep, and one cried murder that they did wake each other. I stood and heard them, but they did say their prayers and address them again to sleep.
There are two lodged together.
One cried, God bless us, and amen the other, as they had seen me with these hangman's hands. Listening their fear, I could not say amen when they did say God bless us.
Consider it not so deeply.
But wherefore can I not say amen? I had most need of blessing, and amen stuck in my throat.
These deeds must not be thought after these ways, though it will make us mad.
Methought I heard a voice cry, sleep no more. Macbeth does murder sleep, the innocent sleep, sleep that knits up the raveled sleeve of care. The death of each day's life, sore labor's bath, balm of hurt minds, chief, great nature's second course, chief a nourisher of life's feast.
What do you mean?
Still it cried, sleep no more to all the house. Glamis hath murdered sleep, and therefore Cawdor shall sleep no more, Macbeth shall sleep no more.
Was it that thus cried? Why, worthy Thane, you do unbend your noble strength to think so brain-sickly of things. Go get some water and wash this filthy witness from your hand. Why did you bring these daggers from the place? They must lie there. Go, carry them and smear the sleepy grooms with blood.
I'll go no more. I'm afraid to think what I have done. Look out again, I dare not.
Infirm of purpose. Give me the daggers. The sleeping and the dead are but as pictures. 'Tis the eye of childhood that fears a painted devil. If he do bleed, I'll gild the faces of the grooms withal, for it must seem their guilt.
Whence is that knocking? How is't with me when every noise appalls me? Hands are these. Huh? How they pluck out mine eyes. Will all of great Neptune's oceans wash this blood clean from my hand? No. Rather, this my hand will the multitudinous seas incarnadine, making the green one red.
My hands are of your color, but I shame to wear a heart so white. I hear a knocking at the south entry. Retire we to our chamber. A little water clears us of this deed. How easy is then? Your constancy hath left you unattended. Hark, more knocking. Get on your nightgown, lest occasion call us and show us to be watchers. Be not lost so poorly in your thoughts.
Know my deed, 'twere best not know myself. Wake Duncan with thy knocking! I would thou couldst.
Wow. You guys aren't fair. You worked on this.
Well, yeah.
Jeez.
This week I did.
I could tell, my goodness, great, you guys. That is very, very precise. I'm like, well, I stopped taking notes in the middle. I'm like, I was like, oh, no, I have to have something to talk about now. You guys are really, really, you've taken it up 5 notches. You're starting to find the life of the characters. Mark, the warrior is there. You know, I really, really like your reading of this character. It's really cool. He the thing is, and I just realized this, that a lot of this stuff, he's shocked at the action that he did, but he's seen gore before, plenty of it. He's seen blood, he's seen battles, you know. So I think it's the thing that panics him is the action, not
It's the
so much.
patricide.
Yeah, not so much the gore. It's the act of killing the king, and you know, like, it's who the action, and plus, you know, the fact that I think that he does have I gathered from your performance that he has a sense of nobility that he shattered with this action. Even on the battlefield, perhaps he had a sense of nobility that, you know, maybe he had certain rules that he lived by while he was fighting, and he just threw them all out the window with this action right there, and the disappointment. Really, really great stuff, both of you guys. Meaghan, I laugh at Lady M. She's hilarious. I mean, she's really got a lot of funny things that she says in here. The spongy officers. I spit my coffee out every time she says spongy officers. There's a lot of humor in her. The way, even when she says, what did I laugh at? She says, my hands are of your color, but my heart's not, you know, so white. Like, she's like, you're such a chicken. Like, pull it together. I don't know. Her courage is impeccable. It's fascinating how brave she is. Like,
Completely overlooking the fact that he actually did the deed.
yeah. She came in, she cleans up,
And then he
like,
falls apart.
yeah. Oh, stand up. She doesn't like that part of him. You know what I mean? I think that
Right.
she doesn't like weakness, you know?
Right.
Is it, or is it the wishy-washiness? Is it the, like, you've made a decision, stick to it?
Could be.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
the follow through. Like, and
Yeah.
there's a place and time for everything. Like, she loves the nobility in him. She loves the heart of him, but that's not useful here. And I think that's part of like why she abandons her humanity or her femininity early in the play with this incantation is is to be like, I know that I have to be the strong one because he's got these things that are going to go on, which are all good things to have. And they're part of what's going to make him a great king, but it's not going to get us to the finish line. I think, I mean, this time it was funny because when you raised your voice to say "Wake Duncan with thy knocking," my instinct was like, Jesus,
Shut the fuck
like,
up.
you know, because it's like she's
That's
like,
what's
do this,
funny
we got
about
this, we
it.
got this, we got this, and she's like, and he's like, I'm just gonna say something, and she's like, stop, you know. I think it is funny, you know, like I
It's
think it.
funny. I can't, I mean, I'm like, I'm not supposed to laugh, but I'm cracking up. Let me give you guys a couple of specific notes. Mark, I really like you made a change before besides this Duncan.
Yes.
And
Happy to
I
talk about
love
that if you want.
that choice.
Okay.
You're having your tennis match is going back and forth in your head. Your thought process is unraveling itself, and then you took a breath and a beat to acknowledge the fact that man, Andy's he's a good guy. You know, he's a good king. So I really noticed that it was very clear.
Thanks.
Please stick with that. Let's see. I have oh yeah, you got to try to keep the other in on the end, but clip it off just like you did. The very end of the speech and falls on the other.
Yeah, I was dropping other.
Yeah, you just dropped it, but
Yeah.
it's because you get caught. But so
Yeah.
it's one of those you have to drop but keep it at the same time.
One of those things I feel like this format makes that a little tougher.
Absolutely, because you can't turn around and see the audience with
Oh, shut
coming
up.
in, and yeah, absolutely. And fog, and we need fog.
We do need fog and blood.
I know I was waiting
And
for the
Christmas
ketchup to come
decorations.
out. Meaghan, oh yes, yes. I really like the choice on was the hope drunk. I put a big thumbs up right there. And I wrote same choice, higher stakes. Which I think just meant exactly what you did with just a little more energy behind it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I'm
Yeah.
not, I mean, that was kind of early on though. And then I saw that you had a plan and that you had built upon that. So I'm not sure that my note works after watching the whole performance, but we'll keep it in mind and you can play with
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
as you wish.
Thank you. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
what do I have? I have pretty piece, very good. This is how hard it is for me to take notes because I'm watching you guys the whole time and I'm like, ah, oh, pretty piece is great. And then I missed three other lines because I was writing this down. Um, oh, here it is, guys. We fail. So there's a question mark in everywhere I look after that line. And I just want to hear it once. Here's the thing that sticks out for me with the choice for, well, if we fail, we fail. I feel like there is no fail with her. And I understand the courage that choice makes, but I feel like the question mark is there for a reason. I feel like the question mark is there because her tactic is to say perhaps to say it's impossible. Perhaps her tactic is to reassure him, and I would think of a stronger verb. That I think we is important and fail is important, and they're both monosyllabic words. And I think that if you give them the same emphasis with a question mark at the end of it, and then the next phrase there, it starts with but I don't think but means the same thing as it does today in
No,
that
just
next
in that
phrase.
sense, it means just screw your courage that's taking place and we
Yeah.
won't. Yeah.
But screw your courage. No, we'll not do that line. You see what I mean by we like
I do. I don't for whatever reason, this is like something that like I deeply, deeply have always felt about this line. I'm
yeah,
happy
okay,
to do it.
okay.
I'm totally will try. I'll absolutely do it the other way. Our
You know
next
what?
read.
Let's just hear it. Let's just do, can we do like a little scene and just hear it both ways and then see what we want to do right there?
From where?
I also want to say that in punctuation at that time, question marks and exclamation points were basically interchangeable, is my understanding. So it's not just for the audience. It's not it just because it had an exclamation point doesn't mean that's what they were saying, that or question mark, that it had to be a question. So, but it could be.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that I'm not sure like choice for, well, if we fail, we fail. I just don't feel like that's something that she would say. I feel like it's more shocking that he said we could fail. You know, it feels
Well,
like
I
go ahead,
understand.
Mark.
I absolutely get the reading, and it's absolutely valid. For some reason, I like an exclamation point much better, just for
Yeah.
me personally. But it's absolutely like it's absolutely a correct reading of it to do it as a question, and I'm happy to do it in this context.
may I
Yeah.
interject?
Yeah, please, Mark.
With Megan's line from scene 5 that she loves so much, my dearest partner of greatness. So I think when Nick, when you said the emphasis on each of those, on the we and the fail, that really rang out to me because of that in the letter between, you know, that with the two of us, are you fucking
Impossible.
pardon my-
Yeah, that's just
Right.
what
Oh yeah,
it feels like
totally.
that to me.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's almost like, but screw your courage to the sticking place and will not fail. Means if we do fail, it's
Gonna be your
your
fault. Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, either just for the audience's sake, so they could see what we're talking about
Yeah,
here.
absolutely.
Let's just, because I know that you can read it. I could give Meaghan 20 different ways to say those two words, and she could do it on a dime. Where are we? But stick my script to the sticking place.
Like 65, line 65.
65, there we are. Thank you. Let's let's go from I have given suck, that little section,
Yeah.
and go in.
Mm.
And then let's go through it just to but screw your courage to the sticking place and will not fail. Is
Yeah.
that okay?
Yeah.
Just to hear it.
I have given suck and know how tender 'tis to love the babe that milked me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from its boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you have done to this.
If we should fail.
We fail? But screw your courage to the sticking place and will not fail.
Excellent. Now let's do it the other way, Meaghan. Let's do it the way without the question mark.
I have given suck and know how tender 'tis to love the babe that milked me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from his boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you have done to this.
If we should fail.
We fail, but screw your courage to the sticking place and will not fail.
See, the problem is Meaghan can make anything work.
See, you're being too nice. But I think one of the things that's so cool about it is you can see, because a lot of times I think people think there is a right way to do Shakespeare. And I think that's not true. It's like any other play. And even I think because language was so flexible in the early modern period, it's even like more options. That like both of those things work perfectly well, and it
They
just
do.
depends what you feel like doing. Like, and it would be
They
fun
do.
to like, okay, what am I going to do tonight? And like, you surprise
You
Macbeth
could
every
change it
time.
up. You
You know?
absolutely could. I would support that if we were doing this, and if we do this someday, which we will do
Which
this
we
someday.
totally will.
I expect it different every night. I'm
That's
gonna
right.
come in just for that line.
Just for that. We
Oh,
fail.
we fail.
We fail.
I want the side eye from
That's it.
Lady M on stage looking.
Sorry, I'm dad distracted at the moment. For some reason, I can't turn the messages off on my computer, and I keep getting like, Dad, what are we doing for dinner? I'm like, I'm Shakespeareing. Can I just say, and Meaghan, I fully believe in your autonomy to do this how you want, but the first take affected me in a very different way. It warmed me up to the idea more than the locker room slap on the back, which I feel like is, if I'm just throwing out shitty analogies, like that's more what that second take feels like come on, versus like us, which is like, oh yeah, we are a unit,
Yeah,
and we are, you
that's
know,
interesting,
just
and I did gather that. You delivered it beautifully.
yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
No, that's it.
Yeah,
That's all
no,
I
I
got.
think it's absolutely uh I think the reason for me the exclamation point, like if I'm going into like deep analysis as opposed to just like what my gut says, it makes screw your courage to the sticking place more important
For sure.
Mhm.
than if it's we fail. Like, of course we're not going to fail. I feel like and I think maybe it's that, that locker room, like it's more of that motivational speech of
Hmm.
like, no, you have to do the thing. Are you with me? You're with me. And then we can move on to the plan. And
Yeah.
maybe that's why it appeals to me.
I would
Well, and
just,
it's hard. Sorry. Well, the delivery of that of we fail informs the delivery of but screw your courage to the
Right.
sticking place, so you almost have to make a little bit of an adjustment on the next line
Yeah,
as well, and
absolutely. Huge adjustment. Yeah.
so fascinating. Go ahead, Mark.
I
Sorry.
would say maybe just from feeling it on the other end, the objective of both of those takes are in this very same, like very similar wheelhouse.
Right.
But it's just the tactic is a little warmer on the first, and I guess maybe it says more about me as an actor. I receive it more from that than I
Yeah.
do from the
Yeah.
other.
It's
But it's
fascinating.
interesting. But
Yeah.
also I think they're equally emphatic, I think is what I was also trying to say. I think they're
Yeah.
equally weighted the way you're doing them, either way. We're
Yeah.
splitting. I'm splitting hairs at this point, but I just
No,
want.
I think that's what's so fun about this stuff is
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, awesome. I can't, what is exciting is I can't wait to see what you choose to do when we perform it. And we don't know either way, but it's good to explore that choice. And I think it is a very important line. Those some of those small lines are the most poignant in Shakespeare. And it
Yeah.
it really says a lot about her and about the relationship and and how she feels about this entire action that they're about to embark on.
Oh, and I think any air around it, I think the fact that you're giving it a a beat to hang in our ear before you move on
Yeah.
also is like it's the exclamation point, kind of like the auditory version of that, you know?
Yeah.
Your guys' pacing is beautiful. It is really well done. This scene, it's amazing to see how it's always a little bit too fast because people want to speed up, because of the panic, and it doesn't have to be that way. I Mark, I have a note on Macbeth hath murdered sleep. When he's starting to go off,
Yeah. I tried to
he's
do it
already.
off book, which was off book last week, and for whatever reason was not there.
No, 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 no. Like I said, the deliveries were pitch perfect in all of these things. We can just explore other ways to go about them. I thought maybe this time it started to, like, when he gets confused, you started to project outward, and I thought maybe
Mhm.
we could explore sucking it in. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
bringing in Macbeth hath murdered sleep. I'm not sure exactly who he's talking to
More
right.
like an implosion.
That's what maybe
Yeah.
it feels like. I'm not sure. Who do you, I mean, he's telling the story to Lady, but I don't know. Uh, what do you guys think? I mean,
That's
what's going on there with this character? It's a really interesting section. Like all of a sudden he just starts to go off.
Do you
well,
think
it's
somebody really said all of these things, Mark? I don't, but
no,
do you
no, I
feel,
think he's
yeah,
hearing
yeah,
this all
yeah,
in his head. No, no, this is
yeah.
psychosis. Um, well, I will maybe if I back up and talk a little bit about something that really helped me, and it was kind of one of those 11th hour ideas that popped in my head today for the opening monologue in 1-7, if it were done. We had already talked about the tennis match. We'd also talked about like the two opposing sides of him. And it's one of those cases where there's an intellectual understanding, but until there's an organic idea about how to actually do it, it doesn't stick, or it's just an intellectual understanding. It's not performable. And something occurred to me today where I was like, well, in the first two lines of that, he's Coriolanus, and then the rest of it, he's Hamlet, and then in the last line, he's Coriolanus again. And I was like,
Absolutely.
now I get that, yes, I know. We've already said all this. but it was that I had to come to it on my own, just like my kids have to, you know. I had to get to like
No, 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 no. And I
it's
think that
literally
I think those
rhetoric. He's
characters you
almost doing
chose are right on too.
well, yeah, because I think Coriolanus, I mean, that's what, yeah, it's what he does, and then he debates it with rhetoric like Hamlet would. So that really, really helped. And so I think taking it back to this scene where you're talking about Macbeth does murder sleep, it's the conversation now is maybe it's more like literally at the gates of hell, trying to hold himself back from being pulled in. You know, it's more of a it's happening. You fucked up, and now you're going. You're lost completely. So I think not making it towards her and explaining something that he didn't actually hear towards her and imploding, I think is an interesting is a stronger, more realistic
Yeah,
way to
it's
do it.
almost like this is the beginning of his journey to madness. You know,
Yeah.
this is the very beginning of, and then all the stuff that happens with the ghosts at the dinner later on, and this is the unraveling of his mind in the very beginning of it. Um, and
And
I felt,
he knows that this is what's going to happen to him, I think. I think that's what that first speech is actually about. Like, I don't know if I can survive this. Like, I don't know if I will be, I won't have my wits if I go through with it.
I feel like that's why it reminds me of the to be or not to be speech.
Yeah.
Uh, in a lot of ways. And I think, and I wish Gideon was here, but I feel like Shakespeare had already written Hamlet and Coriolanus before this
Mm.
play. Is that correct? I think this is one of his, this one came out in 1606, so around there somewhere, I think. So I'm not
Yeah, that
exactly
sounds
sure
right.
of that. But
Yeah,
I
Macbeth is always later than I expected.
yeah,
Like
I
I
think
Mm.
it's one
feel
of
like
his
Macbeth
last
is in
shows.
earlier plays, but it's sort of like at the end of the middle.
Which is one of the reasons I think it's so good. Like he just really perfected him. I don't know why. This is just one of my favorite Shakespeare plays. He just nails like everything. It's so incredible. I keep saying that over and over again. Sorry, audience.
No, it's
Um,
mine too.
what do we have
Top
here?
five.
I wrote spongy with exclamation. It's
Spongy
my favorite
opposite.
line, I
I
think,
think
in the
too,
whole
I
thing.
think, I mean, one of the things I was playing with today, I went for a walk and I was like, I should get mostly off book. But yeah, the spongy officers and there's a line break right before, um, let's see, it's, yeah, where she says, yeah, what not put upon his spongy officers, and after what not put upon, there's a line break. And I think it's a fun one to play with that she comes up with something that's like, it's kind of a ridiculous word and it's very evocative. And it's
Yeah,
like, that she's like, what not put upon spongy officer. Like she comes up with this like
he's
tactile
hilarious.
and like, it's such a funny, weird, like, you know, like
And
and I think she's like dehumanizing these men that they're going to ruin. Like if I go like intellectual on it,
Hmm.
that like these two Chamberlains were basically fucking for no reason. It's like we're
Yeah.
keeping ourselves. Sorry if I curse on this and that's and I'm not allowed to.
I've been doing it
Um,
too.
but like instead of being like we'll frame these two upstanding citizens for murder, we're like they're whatever. Like you have to make them less in order to sacrifice them for
So
this.
she's moralizing because they're drunks. Spongy, spongy to me is like because they're
Oh, sure.
alcoholics.
They've sucked
Yeah,
up all the alcohol that was
yeah,
given
yeah,
them.
It's
Oh
such a
yeah, that's why
great,
yeah.
it's
it's so
amazing.
descriptive.
They're just two drunks. Who's gonna
I
care?
should I love that. Yeah, it's one of my favorite
She's
lines
really
too.
hard and funny at the same time, though. I mean, even her description of the baby, and I would have plucked my nipple from its boneless gums. Like,
Yeah.
she is a tough, tough human being for sure. Um,
And I think one of the things that's
one
interesting is I
line I
don't know if
would,
she's always like that. Like, is she like that since she called upon the forces of darkness?
Mm.
Like how
interesting.
much of that is her and how much of that is her calling upon the forces of darkness?
I mean, it would be more interesting to see for the audience to see that change, to
Yeah.
see that happen in front of them from going from
Yeah.
this to this.
Like it's like
Um,
I'm going to reinforce what I have naturally with
I have
evil.
a note that I wrote down speaking of boneless gums and dashed the brains out of the baby. Meaghan hit, uh, don't be careful not to brush over sworn. Had I so sworn,
Yeah.
you have done
Yes,
to
thank
this.
you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, just because I think she really lets him have it right there.
Yeah.
That's the thing that is so important. The fact that I mean, correct me if you know more about this. I don't know, but if you swear something in this time, I mean, it's
It's a
more
big
than
deal.
just a promise. It's like a vow to God kind of thing, right?
An
Like,
oath. Yeah.
yeah.
Big deal. Yeah. Yeah, because it's one of those things where she wouldn't do this if she wouldn't kill her baby just for anything. You know, it's sort of like I would do this crazy, horrible thing if I made this oath. Yeah.
Yeah, she's really like, you don't, there's no more tennis match.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
The game is up. Let's, it's time for
Yeah.
action now. Yeah, that was really, really beautiful, you guys. Really wonderful. Hey, Mark, do you have the is that a dagger monologues anywhere? Is like one of your thing there? I know we can just read it. You don't have to perform it. But I thought there's something happening in between these two scenes, and Macbeth has got this speech, and it would be a crime for us not to.
Oh man.
I was gonna let you know, but I mean, it's not about performance. It's more about just the audience hearing the words. If you have that anywhere.
Well, let me ask you this then, since we're looking at it. Go bid thy mistress when my drink is ready. Strike upon the she strike when my drink is ready. She strike upon the bell. Get thee to bed. What is she preparing for Macbeth? Yeah, like I'm just curious. Like is sleeping potion because he's, or like something to rev him up to go do this thing that he's gonna do.
Yeah, where is that? Are you looking at an
It's
art
right before he gets into, is this, I really want to do this like Richard Burton for some reason. Or is this a dagger which I see before me? Yeah.
Robin Williams in Dead Poets Society does it as John Wayne. Remember that?
Is this a dagger?
Yeah. Dagger I see before me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure actually. What do you think, Meaghan?
I have to get to it because I don't think I've ever. Let's see. So he's saying to them, when my drink is ready. Well, I think it might just be as simple as it's the possets. Like everybody gets a posset before bed, and the spongy officers get possets that are going to knock them out. And because it would be unusual for him not to have a drink before bed because he always has a drink before bed. So I don't actually think it's anything different. And I don't even know if he drinks it. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's like, I need my wits about me. I'm not going to have my posset because I'm not going to bed yet. But I think that it's probably that's my instinct without doing any kind of research. But I think from what we were talking about before with the explanation of what a posset is, and you know, it's a cold night, they're going to warm themselves up before they go to bed, you know, that kind of thing. So that's I guess what I would say.
We'll have Gideon send us some information
that's right.
on possets, please.
Stay tuned.
Deposit our possets.
Because I feel like that we have to keep like a sense of normalcy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just more like this is the routine. Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing unusual.
It's not like a liquid courage thing, is it? Like
I thought it might be that, or I thought it might be something a little bit more witchy. I wasn't sure if it might be something that's like to
your
like rev him up.
Nightly peyote drink.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, it could be, but I also don't know if she was doing something unusual. Would he ask a servant about it?
Are these the special mushrooms?
Yeah.
That's right. So I feel like if it was something special, then it would either feature more prominently and he wouldn't tell a servant about it.
Interesting. Mark, do you have that speech?
Sure.
Can you just read it for us for fun?
No, this is a reading, ladies and gentlemen. Nick. Is this a dagger which I see before me? The handle toward my hand, come let me clutch thee. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. Art thou not, fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight? Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation, proceeding from the heat-oppressed brain? I see thee yet, in form as palpable as this which now I draw. Thou marshalest me the way that I was going, and such an instrument I was to use. Mine eyes are made the fools of the other senses, or else worth all the rest. I see thee still, and on thy blade and dudgeon gouts of blood, which was not so before. There's no such thing. It is the bloody business which informs thus to mine eyes. Now o'er the one-half world nature seems dead, and wicked dreams abuse the curtained sleep. Witchcraft celebrates pale Hecate's offerings and withered murder, alarmed by his sentinel, the wolf, whose howls his watch, thus, with his stealthy pace, with Tarquin's ravishing strides towards his design, moves like a ghost. Thou sure and firm-set earth, hear not my steps, which way they walk, for fear thy very stones prate of my whereabouts, and take the present horror from the time, which now suits with it. Whiles I threat, he lives. Words to the heat of deeds, too cold breath gives. I go and it is done. The bell invites me. Hear it not, Duncan. There's a couplet. Don't interrupt
Yeah,
me.
sorry. Go ahead. I cut you off right at the very heart of
Hear
it.
it.
That was just awful. Awful. Go ahead and say that couplet for me.
Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That's interesting. You know, listening for the first time, I realized that it's almost like his version of the speech that Lady gave when she made a deal early on in the play. You know what I mean? It's kind of his version of that. That's kind of the speech where he's making the change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, that's what you're talking about. He's getting ready for this action, and you know, there's almost an awareness of what could happen to him.
Mm-hmm.
He brings up all this, like the Hecate and the witches and the devil and the, you know, like
I'm committing an act of witchcraft.
It's almost like both of them give up their goodness for power. Openly and on stage, they say, I'm gonna release all noble intentions so that I can have power.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Or even just like I am giving my humanity to, you know, to make space for the dark forces that are gonna, because I can't do this on my own.
Yeah.
Like that they both know, and they know about, or she knows about him, that he can't do it on his own. And she sacrifices herself for him, and then he has to do the same to get the strength to do it.
It's like an awful gift of the Magi.
That's funny. But it's interesting.
It's a Christmas play.
Right.
It is a Christmas play with fog.
With
foggy
fog.
Christmas.
A foggy Christmas on the moor.
Here it goes, stories.
That's the musical. Yeah, that was beautifully read. And I think it's important for us to hear that change that he goes through between our two scenes, because a deal is made, and that gives you have this Macbeth, and then after the deed is done, you have an entirely new character that comes on.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing. Where else did that happen in the canon? Like where else does it happen? I mean, there's like Edgar in Lear, but he artificially becomes somebody else.
I feel like Hamlet goes away and comes back later on, and there's a change to him. But nothing. What's beautiful is you see the change in both of these characters happen in front of your eyes. Like the audience gets to watch the change happen and watch, and it's also made. It's not something that happens to them. It's like a decision that they make. It's like a willing, they're willing to give up their soul for this, and it's quite powerful. I see why it was so dangerous. Can you imagine people 200-300 years ago hearing this play and seeing these people do this and they were terrified of this play? You know, if you say words of this play in a theater, I don't know if all the audience knows this. You have to go outside, spit, curse, and spin around 3 times.
Yeah, there are a bunch of different versions of it, but yeah, it's always the curse of Macbeth and saying the word Macbeth in a theater. And some people I know do the angels and ministers of grace defend us from Hamlet.
That's right.
Yeah, there's so many, you know, and
there were rumors of people who would speak lines from this play and sandbags would fall on them from the, you know.
Right. Like, they said Macbeth in a theater.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is beautifully done, you guys. I think that we're getting to the point where we can where we can perform it.
Yeah.
Got a few minutes to talk. Why don't we go back and take a look at the first speech and then one of Meaghan's speeches that I've written down. Mark, would you mind talking through If It Were Done once with us just
Sure.
before we go into a quick performance? And which is not a final performance according to Nathan, but yes, it is anyway.
Hold on, I've got foot traffic upstairs. Let me have a second.
Oh no worries.
I'm in my
I really
very
liked how we came
California basement.
with the first line of this we broke it down into two sections. It's really getting
Yes.
clear.
Yeah. And I think having like almost like a Jekyll and Hyde perspective on it of this is my, warrior mind, and then literally it can be it's as subtle as just no, what about this? You
It's
know?
kind of like we used to divide characters into head characters,
Yeah.
heart characters, and groin characters. You know what I mean? And then there's that balance of, with his head and his groin going
Yeah.
back and forth, and then the heart pouring itself out. And um, it's very clear, though. Your delivery is really that back and forth that he's exploring is very clear. I really like it.
I think one of the
Let's
things
hear.
about this that I was listening to, having spent some time with the earlier speech where she talks about he's got too much of the milk of human kindness. He can't do that. He'd rather be he's more afraid of doing the thing than wishing, or he would rather afraid of doing it than wishing it were done. And this is, I feel like, the same thing, that if it were done when to done, then twere well it were done quickly. Because if he could convince himself it was done when it was done, then he'd do it. But I think his
Hmm.
whole way of convincing himself not to do it is he's like, but there's judgment, and like we've got all this stuff and all this, and I find that, like, what a fat stuff out of it. And she has totally projected, like, he's gonna sit there and say to do it.
I
And
think
and
that the whole thing starts with if, and that's so important, because it's what if is going on in his head, and he's going back and forth, and he's saying all the different scenarios that could possibly happen. Um, and he's a warrior. I really it's cool because I've been watching all the different versions of this lately, and I like, Ian McKellen's version is very intellectual. It's very working this out. And then, Fassbender has a version that's very gritty and very battle worn
I haven't seen that
warrior.
one yet. I want to see that one.
it's
Good.
good.
It's
It's
good.
good.
Yeah.
Brendan Gleeson is my favorite Duncan ever. I love
You-
him as an actor. I think he's
Ooh.
marvelous, but his Duncan is fabulous. Best
yes.
Duncan.
Yes. And I even watched a little bit of Patrick Stewart.
Oh yeah, we watched that one. Yeah, we were looking at
Patrick
it before a
Stewart
couple
has
of years
one. It's
ago.
very beautifully shot.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's very sort of
When was
conceptual.
that?
It's
Was it
just
RSC?
a
No.
while
like
ago. No, it was a movie version.
Oh,
it's a movie, but it's very stagey at the same time.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
interesting. Like I feel
surreal.
like it was a production that they did and then they filmed it.
Probably.
I
There were
also have
things
not
about it I
seen
liked.
the Denzel version or the Cohen version either.
There is some neat visual stuff in that.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, let's just talk this through one more time because we're not going to get to do it again and I'm going to miss it. And then we'll go on to one of Lady M's speeches and then we'll just do the whole thing and just let it fly.
Okay.
Let's talk this through. Go ahead and give us this speech. Would you?
Okay.
Thank you.
If it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. If the cessation could trammel up the consequence and catch with his surcease success, that but this blow might be the be-all and the end-all here. But here, upon this bank and shoal of time, we jump the life to come. But in these cases we still have judgment here, that we but teach bloody instructions, which being taught, return to plague the inventor. This even-handed justice commends the ingredients of our poison chalice to our own lips. He's here in double trust, First, as I am his kinsman and his subject, strong both against the deed, then as his host, who should against his murderer shut the door, not bear the knife myself. Besides, this Duncan hath borne his faculties so meek, hath been so clear in his great office, that his virtues will plead, like angels, trumpet-tongued against the deep damnation of his taking off, and pity, like a naked newborn babe striding the blast, or heaven's cherubim horsed upon the sightless couriers of the air, shall blow the horrid deed in every eye, that tears shall drown the wind. I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition, which o'erleaps itself and falls on to other. How now? What news?
Excellent. Thank you so much. There's a lot of heart in that speech.
I think so. Way more than I originally thought.
There really is.
I think it's
And now that we
actually
read the letter and that beautiful speech that Meaghan gave us earlier, I can really see what she's talking about. It's interesting. Yeah.
and it's this last few days that have really made that more clear, that this is his snapshot of who he is before he makes this soul-damning choice.
It's the last
Yeah.
time we get to see him.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I was
it's
thinking
quite
about what you were
sad.
saying about him being a warrior too, and I actually think he's probably the kind, he has to fully believe that what they are going on the battlefield to do is righteous.
Yes.
He's not mercenary. He would like to think, now that he's got that mileage under his belt, like as far as being a warrior, that he could be mercenary, but he's not.
Yes.
You know.
It made me think of the earlier part of the play when they're talking about the traitorous Thane. The reason he gets the Thane of Cawdor is because they have to kill the other guy because he's a traitor. And like, what an interesting thing to like set this up, that Shakespeare's included that bit
Mhm.
of plot in there, that like this is what happens to traitors, and also like the way Macbeth feels about the traitor being done, like, and, oh, well, you have to do it, and it's just like an interesting sort of like, we do get all these glimpses of why he'd be a good king, and in another
Mm.
circumstance that
Oh, yes.
It's interesting to hear you say that, because you just made me think of, I'm sure I know Stephen Pressfield talks about it. Robert McKee probably talks about it too. The beginning is always tied up, from a writing perspective, the beginning is always tied up somewhere I'm sorry, the ending is always tied up somewhere in the beginning. Like, there's a thread, you get a hint of what the outcome is right in the very beginning, and it becomes an avalanche that's unavoidable by the end of the play. That's really interesting. I never thought about it that way before, Meaghan.
yeah, I hadn't thought about it either until I just heard you talking. I'm like, oh right, because there is that scene where the messenger comes in and talks about what happened to the previous Thane of Cawdor.
Yeah.
I keep wanting, I don't know if can we make it just for a minute? Do you have a script in front of you? Do you have
I have the folder up online, yeah.
should we look at, the speech that she has where she gives up her soul?
Oh, sure.
I'm not even sure where that is. Is it
I
one?
think it must be it's 1-5. It's after the messenger
Is
leaves.
it 1-5 at the end of
I
that?
think so.
Guys, excuse me 1 second.
No worries, no worries.
How dare you?
Let's hear what let's
Yeah,
hear that,
after the
because
messenger
I keep
leaves.
wanting we're hearing when Macbeth makes his choice. It might be interesting for us to hear where Lady Macbeth makes her choice.
Yeah. Here, let me move some things around so I can see.
Is that the Raven himself is fourth?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah,
one
it's
five.
still part of
Yeah.
1-5.
11.
Yeah. And I've never actually worked on this, so this is definitely, I
No,
mean,
let's
I've
just
heard it
read
a
it out
gazillion
loud.
times, so. The raven himself is hoarse that croaks the fatal entrance of Duncan under my battlements. Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here, and fill me from the crown to the toe, top full of direst cruelty. Make thick my blood, stop up the access and passage to remorse, that no compunctious visitings of nature shake my fell purpose, nor keep peace between the effect and it. Come to my woman's breasts and take my milk for gall, you murdering ministers, wherever in your sightless substances you wait on nature's mischief. Come, thick night, and pall thee in the dunnest smoke of hell, that my keen knife see not the wound it makes, nor heaven peep through the blanket of the dark to cry, hold, hold. And then her hubby comes in.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was enraptured and I was
Oh,
not
no,
on.
no, no, he doesn't say it. She said something. I thought we were just stopping. And then they...
That is fascinating. Her choice has zero reluctance, though, it seems.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, she knows what she needs. As soon as she said, what is your tiding? The messenger comes in and says, the king comes here tonight. And that's like, she's like, that's crazy. I guess we have to do it. And I think she buys into the witches.
That's so interesting because she's like, this is fate.
Yep.
This is
Yep.
how it has to happen.
Yeah.
I've never thought of it that way. Fascinating.
And I just now occurred to me, what has she as a woman in this environment experienced up until this point? Where yes, she's the wife of a relatively successful guy at this point. What did she endure up to that point? That if now I have a chance to level the playing field with these bastards, you know what I mean? In a lot of ways, I just wonder if there's also things she's endured that we don't know anything
He's
about.
got a backstory for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. But you know what's so interesting is you gather, even if you don't know the specifics of the backstory, you know from the language that there is one.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
You know from the language that she's been through something.
This child that we don't know anything about.
Right.
Past
And I think too,
children.
the fact that Shakespeare writes, my dearest partner of greatness, like there's a level, there's a I can't think of the word that I'm thinking, but there's a respect between them and a division of labor, because I don't think a lot of husbands at that time would have brought their wives into this conversation.
There's a parity between them. Yeah.
Interesting.
Parity,
Yeah.
that's the word I was looking for. Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting.
And she knows, and so then I think she feels a responsibility to lift him up and to give him the support that he needs, and in which in like other worlds would be like a nice thing, and in this is like, I'm giving up my soul. I'm giving up my femininity to become unsex me here, make me a man so that I can
but it's so that I can help my love in a way.
right.
It's almost
It
the
is.
deepest love in all of
Yeah.
Shakespeare.
That's what I always say.
It's
They have the
almost-
healthiest relationship in Shakespeare,
It's
the best
almost
marriage
the
in
most
Shakespeare.
romantic relationship in all of Shakespeare. It kind of blows. You think it's
Mhm.
Romeo and Juliet? No.
No, the kid.
But it
No,
really is. That's
yeah.
fascinating.
And
Oh, wow.
I feel like a lot of times it gets boiled down to sex. I think sex is probably important, but like I feel like to like really play two people who respect each other and love each other and care about each other, and then watch them destroy themselves.
That
When you look at Coriolanus,
that could inform We Fail.
Right.
We fail,
Right, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Except his relationship with Coriolanus is with his mom.
That's what I was gonna say. Like his wife is just kind of the cheerleader, and she's like cannon fodder to make him want to go reinvade Rome.
Right. Yeah. Poor Virgilia.
Yeah.
She's pretty useless.
Oh, wow, you guys. Absolute beauty. Hey, Mark, one quick technical note
Yes.
that I wrote down was the deep damnation of his taking off and pity. I wouldn't break up your momentum maybe right there. I think you can use taking off to propel you into and pity.
Yeah, I was curious what you thought about
I felt like you were cooking
personifying
and
pity.
and then I feel like he continues. I feel like that thought process is continuing through, but that's just
Mm.
how I heard it musically. I don't
I
know.
think
What do you
also
Yeah,
think?
you
yeah,
have to keep building it because otherwise you don't get to the pitch. It can't lose any momentum there.
Yeah, I like to
yeah.
step back on besides this Duncan hath borne him,
That was so
I
Yeah,
step
you get
back
like
there.
beautiful.
one of those. Don't take two. Yeah.
That was
Yeah, that's what I
beautiful. I
think. I
loved
think
that.
then it's pushing, building all the way to the end because he's talking about, heavens, horsed upon the sightless couriers of the air. And, it just keeps getting, the thoughts are getting so big.
And this is one of the things that I'm now struggling with is, although we know like he's fighting at the gates of hell for himself in that later speech, if that's just something to try that we talked about, I'm still not convinced he fully believes these images as much as he's thinking about public perception of the murder of a king. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? That it's not an accidental death, and it's going to be a mourning, a kingdom-wide mourning of the king. It's a murder of a king, and all of the suspicion that that arouses, and and it would be biblical. Like the suspicion of who and how and why would be biblical, and can I escape that? So
Yeah, no,
not so much can I do it, maybe it's more could I bear it? Not even can I get away with it, can I bear it? Because the scrutiny would be constant. Not to mention, I don't know, I'm not sure which feels more playable to me at the moment. You know what I mean?
well, he does care about what the kingdom thinks. He does
Right.
care about other people's opinions, because he says, people like me right now.
Yeah.
Why
I
can't
mean,
we
look,
just
we're
stick with
good.
that?
Yeah.
Everything's good, like,
Okay. I
and
might
that's
become
an
king
interest
later.
that's an
Yeah.
interesting moment, you know what I mean? It's interesting to hear. It's like they've borne all kinds of opinions, which, people think I'm pretty good. We'll just leave it
Yeah.
here and I'll be king, like
Yeah.
fine.
We get you a
But
new horse. We'll just, yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean? And I think that that's an interesting, and I really liked the way you played that though. You took there's a couple of times when he tries to command her in that
Yes.
scene, it
Yeah,
feels
yeah,
like,
yeah.
where he's like, "No, we're gonna do this." And she's
Yeah.
like, "What happened to you? Look at you know what I mean?"
Yeah,
And
yeah.
she comes back stronger, so
Yeah.
it becomes this beautiful thing, and that's why they're so great for each other. They build each other up, and even when he says prithee peace, I like how you played that as well. You're a warrior, and you made a choice to be like, chill
Don't
out.
challenge me on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But then, and she comes in with a new tactic and kind of wins again.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is she's convincing because what she says is true. And a lot of she really has, she's very grounded in the words, she sells it really well.
Mm.
And I think that they've had a conversation that we haven't read on screen, but the scene that comes after her unsex me here monologue is he comes in and they talk about it, and he
Hmm.
says, "This is what I want," and they're like, "Yes, this is what we want. This is what we're going to do." So it's like we've had a moment where we know he's indecisive. We know he's, or not indecisive, but we know he worries about what people think. We know he has a tendency towards this poetic language when he's worrying about what people think. We know he's, that he has the milk of human kindness, and she's like, okay, we got to work around that. Like so, like everything that's happening is exactly what they expect to happen. So she's playing her part in like this is, and maybe this is something that happens, in their relationship that she's like, you said you wanted to do this, like, so you want to do this. And I think
There's
that
a
I think
moment
that
in Jerry Maguire where where I can't remember, one of the characters takes one of the other characters' face and she says, "Baby, this is us." And
yeah.
it's a beautiful moment in that film that always struck with me every time that I've watched it. And I feel like she does that a lot. She's like, "We are together in this,
Right.
You're not
Right.
alone." And I think he worries about that. He worries about being alone.
That's interesting. Like, what if he doesn't, just from a husband's perspective, she's telling me to do it, but what if I do it and then we realize this is too much for us to bear, not just me, the two of us. Like, this could be the wedge that, like, that shatters the parity that we have, the kind of this
Yeah.
self-charging power that we have together. Like, I know we're saying we want to do this, but there's no coming back from it, really. There's no coming
Right.
back. It's a very final action. Anyway.
Yeah, and that's why I think when he says bring forth men, children only, that's almost, I mean, it almost feels like a joke, like something
Yeah,
they
it's like an
share,
alpha
Yeah.
mode
like
thing.
like you are something else,
Yeah.
it's I don't know, it's interesting. I think that he loves her power. He loves her mind, I think that they balance each other so well, and she is his missing link because he can be wishy-washy and he can go back and forth, and she is very direct and very stick to the plan. And he needs that.
Yeah.
He needs somebody in his life that, she's the tracks on which his train runs. She provides his foundation in a way. And yeah, I think the fear of losing that would be he would be wandering in the forest alone without her.
Which he
Mm.
ends up doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And when she goes away, and that, you think like when she dies and, he does his tomorrow speech, he's lost the rest of himself at that point.
Yeah.
And every day that I live past this will just be another day of hell.
He is a ghost at
Yeah.
that
Yeah. I
point.
think that's one of the saddest speeches in Shakespeare. The
Oh
tomorrow,
God.
tomorrow, tomorrow.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
devastating.
And it's great because these are the little snippets where we get to see how they are part of each other.
Mm.
Which is why I wanted to explore this entire thing in the first place, because I think that this is one of the most beautiful relationships in all of Shakespeare. And it gets lost in the midst of these actions and the plans and everything. But what they have, they are truly the missing parts of each other.
Mm.
I agree. And I
Um,
think if I were ever to have the gift of doing it, that's like, I think I brought it up the very first time, like the humanity of them, I feel like gets lost in some of the everything is evil and like the moodiness and like the horror of what they do, that like to do a production of this where you're like clinging to the humanity part of it as long as you can until you lose it. And like how devastating that is.
I want it to be a Christmas party. I
Yeah.
want it to be,
That's a
you know
good
what I
idea.
mean? It would be so neat to do it in this bright, almost loving fashion. You know what I mean? Like a
Yeah.
way to where it's not dark and moody and torches and everything. It's like bright and beautiful. And then progressively the play will work itself out,
Sure.
Right. Yeah,
so
there's something about that irony that just feels like delicious to me.
Yeah.
yes.
What's the
Yes. And
timeline of the whole play? Are we talking days? Are we talking months? Because how
oh,
long
Mark,
do they
that's really something
sustain?
I should know, but I don't.
Gideon, where are
No,
you?
but I mean it's
Why
it,
did
Gideon.
we not ask this last
because I was just
time?
thinking like if we kill Duncan on Christmas Eve and then it's
Yeah.
Christmas and
Is
then
it
it's Boxing Day,
Epiphany?
you know what I mean? Or New Year's Eve, like the timeline
Uh,
of that versus like
It's in the show and it's in the language, that's for sure. We
I
would
think it's got
definitely
to
be
be
able to
more
figure
than a
that out.
few days because he has to be
yeah,
installed and then things have to go wrong
yeah,
and then, you know,
yeah.
Yeah, and Duncan's sons escape and
yeah, they get all
they
the way
come
to England and
back, and
France
so
and
yeah,
yeah.
maybe a month or a couple of
You
months.
could have Christmas year zero and Christmas year one. And Christmas year one would be, you know, Burnham
Yeah,
Wood.
but it is,
Right.
it is the end of, yeah, in reaching for this power, they end themselves, and
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to explore the end of a year and the beginning of a new year with, Malcolm, and there's a whole
Hmm.
that
Right.
trajectory, and it is some of the, because these characters, like Macduff's story is incredibly tragic,
Oh,
you
Oh
know,
my God. Yeah.
incredibly
another
tragic.
one of the greatest lines in Shakespeare.
Yeah.
All my little
Dispute it
chickens.
like a man, but
Yeah.
at first I must feel it like a man. Like,
Uh,
And the reason is because this is about the loss of people's humanity and the loss of
mm,
the loss of love, essentially.
mm,
In different ways, the love of children, the love of marriage, the love of, um, but through that loss, Shakespeare shows us the importance of love and the beauty of it.
Mhm.
And which is what's beautiful about, these scenes are wicked in nature, but beautiful in soul. And I think it's important for us to let people see that, as you guys are.
Mm.
Let's just perform it. Let's just do it. Let's give it all we got. This is one more shot, and we'll see where we end up. And then let's invite Nathan back, and we can talk about it a little more. All right.
One moment, you know.
Have a drink of water. Do whatever you guys need to do. Mark, we'll take it off
Yep.
your cue when you're ready to start. Yeah, let's just see where we land and try to, try to use all that we've learned over this wonderful month working on this.
This has been great, by the way. It's been very nutritious. That's my new catchword for things that I
love
feel
that.
like,
It is,
yeah.
though. I agree with that. It feels like nourishment. It does.
Yeah, I always
I'm
say
gonna
it
I'm gonna
scratches this
disappear and
itch.
let you guys, whenever you're ready, go and take a minute, think about it, then jump on in.
If it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. If the assassination could trammel up the consequence and catch with his surcease success, that with this blow might be the be-all and the end-all here. But here, upon this bank and shoal of time, we jump to life to come. But in these cases, we still have judgment here, that we but teach bloody instructions, which being taught return to plague the inventor. This even-handed justice commends the ingredients of our poison chalice to our own lips. He's here, in double trust, first as I am his kinsman and his subject, strong both against the deed, then as his host, who should against his murderer shut the door, not bear the knife myself. Besides, this Duncan hath borne his faculties so meek, hath been so clear in his great office, that his virtues will plead, like angels trumpet-tongued, against the deep damnation of his taking off, and pity, like a naked new-born babe striding the blast, or heaven's cherubim horsed upon the sightless couriers of the air, shall blow the horrid deed in every eye, that tears shall drown the wind. I have no spur to prick the sedge of my intent, but only vaulting ambition, which o'erleaps itself and falls on the other. How now? What news?
He has almost supped. Why have you left the chamber?
Hath he asked for me?
No, you're not. He has.
We will proceed no further in this business. He hath honored me of late, and I have bought golden opinions from all sorts of people, which should be worn now in their newest gloss, not cast aside so soon.
Was the hope drunk wherein you dressed yourself? Hath it slept since? And wakes it now to look so green and pale at what it did so freely? From this time, thus I account thy love. Art thou afeard to be the same in thine own act and valor as thou art in desire? Wouldst thou have that which thou esteemst the ornament of life, and live a coward in thine own esteem, letting I dare not wait upon I would, like the poor cat in the adage?
Prithee, peace. I dare do all that may become a man. Who dares do more is none.
What beast wast then that made you break this enterprise to me? When you durst do it, then you were a man. And to be more than what you were, you would be so much more the man. nor time nor place did then adhere, yet you would make both. They have made themselves, and that their fitness now doth unmake you. I have given suck, and know how tender 'tis to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it were smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from its boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you have done to this.
If we should fail.
We fail? Let's screw your courage to the sticking place, and we'll not fail. When Duncan is asleep, where to the rather shall his day's hard journey soundly invite him, his two chamberlains will I with wine and wassail so convince that memory, the warder of the brain, shall be a fume, and the receipt of reason a limbeck only. When in swinish sleep their drenched natures lies as in a death, what cannot you and I perform upon the unguarded Duncan? What not put upon his spongy officers, who shall bear the guilt of our great well?
Bring forth men children only, for thy undaunted mettle should compose nothing but males. Will it not be received when we have marked with blood those sleepy two of his own chamber, and used their very daggers that they have done't?
Who dares receive it other? We shall make our grief and clamor roar upon his death.
Settled, and bent up every corporal agent to this terrible feat. Away, and mark the time with fairest show. False face must hide what the false heart doth know.
That which hath made them drunk hath made me bold. What hath quenched them hath given me fire. Hark! Peace. It was the owl that screamed, the fatal bellman which gives the sternest good night. He is about it. The doors are opened, and the surfeited grooms do mock their charge with snores. I have drugged their possets, that death and nature do contend about them whether they live or die.
Who's there? What? How?
Alack, I am afraid they have awaked, and 'tis not done. The attempt and not the deed confounds us. Hark! I laid their daggers ready. He could not miss them. Had he not resembled my father as he slept, I had done. My husband.
I have done the deed. Didst thou not hear a noise?
I heard the owl scream and the crickets cry. Did you not speak?
When?
No.
As I descended.
Aye.
Who lies in the second chamber?
Donalbain.
This is a sorry sight.
A foolish thought to say a sorry sight.
There's one did laugh and sleep, and one cried murder, that they did wake each other. I stood and heard them. But they did say their prayers and address them again to sleep.
There are two lodged together.
One cried, God bless us, everyone. God bless us. And amen the other, as they had seen me with these hangman's hands. Listening their fear, I could not say, God bless us.
Consider it not so deeply.
But wherefore could I not pronounce amen? I had most need of blessing, and amen stuck in my throat.
These deeds must not be thought after these ways, so it will make us mad.
Thought I heard a voice cry, sleep no more. Macbeth does murderers sleep. The innocent sleep, sleep that knits up the raveled sleeve of care. The death of each day's life. Sore labor's bath, balm of hurt minds. Great nature's second course, chief nourisher in life's feast.
What do you mean?
Still he cried, sleep no more to all the house. Glamis doth murder sleep, therefore Cawdor shall sleep no more. Macbeth shall sleep no more.
Who was it that thus cried? high worthy thane, you do unbend your noble strength to think so brain-sickly of things. Go get some water and wash this filthy witness from your hand. Why did you bring these daggers from the place? They must lie there. Go, carry them and smear the sleepy grooms with blood.
I'll go no more. I'm afraid to think what I have done. Look on it again, I dare not.
Infirm of purpose. Give me the daggers. The sleeping and the dead are but as pictures. 'Tis the eye of childhood that fears a painted devil. If he do bleed, I'll gild the faces of the grooms withal, for it must seem their guilt.
Whence is that knocking? How is it with me when every noise appalls me? What hands are here, huh? They pluck out mine eyes. Will all great Neptune's oceans wash this blood clean from my hands? No. Rather this my hand will the multitudinous seas incarnadine, making the green one red.
My hands are of your color, but I shame to wear a heart so white. I hear a knocking at the south entry. Retire we to our chamber. A little water clears us of this deed. How easy is it then? Your constancy hath left you unattended. Hark, more knocking. Get on your nightgown, lest occasion call us and show us to be watchers. Be not lost so poorly in your thoughts.
To know my deed, 'twere best not know myself. Wake Duncan with thy knocking! I would thou couldst.
I'm just beaming with pride. I really am. You both should be very, very proud of yourselves for that performance. It's the clearest I've ever seen those scenes. Um, really, really, I mean, it's funny. I was writing things down that I never noticed before. You know, I love how she says, consider it not so deeply. That's kind of the point of so much of it. She's like, well, you stop thinking so much.
Yeah.
It's you guys did a beautiful job crafting the relationship between these two characters. And that's what this exploration was all about from the very beginning. I'm exceedingly proud of both of you and the beautiful work that you just did. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nathan, thanks for the platform.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm really delighted that everything you guys were able to discuss and explore, and it just allows for the format allows for such time that we can get into those granular details of, well, what is it like for this husband and wife to argue or get on the same page, and just to really, as we talked about in earlier weeks, this is always the goal, is to really make them real people, that audience members can identify with or see themselves in, that they're not just, oh, this is the character of Macbeth and this is the character of Lady. It's like, oh no, this is like, oh yeah, I've had that argument with my partner a number of times, and oh yeah, they have totally talked to me like that, and you can see that this is just a couple wrestling with a gargantuan challenge and problem that most of us never have to, but you identify, like, but they're still a couple. They're still a really powerful relationship, and they really love each other. So I really enjoy the level of the depth of conversation that you guys were able to have, and just all the things that you allow and kind of encourage us as audience members to think about when watching these scenes. It's really enjoyable. So yeah, no, it was great. It was really, I mean, each time through, you hear things differently, or things drop in a different way. So yeah, no, it was great, and love the conversation. I could keep going on about that, but it's just enjoyable to hear you guys thinking of new things, or the point you made, Meaghan, about the Thane of Condor at the beginning of the play, that he's a traitor, and And it's just like, boy, that is really interesting dramatically. That's like, oh, right, okay, yeah. So no, it was great. Thank you.
I think one of the things that I appreciate about this so much, and you always introduce it like, this is the rehearsal room. This is what and when there are non-professional or emerging professionals in the room, and like they can see how professionals blah blah blah. And I always think like you never get this time. When
Hmm.
you go into a
Sure.
professional production, you should probably already be off book. You have to know everything that you're saying, and you may talk a little bit about things here and there, but you might get like 3 days of table work, and then it's up on its
Right.
feet. You get like a couple of weeks of rehearsal, a week of tech, and then you're going. And so, like, to be able to sit and like think about two scenes of Shakespeare for
Hmm.
8 hours
Right.
and have the discussions that we're having, and you get to have opinions about parts that aren't yours. Like if I ever said like anything that I say about Macbeth in a rehearsal room, like it's totally inappropriate, but in this case we can argue about, well, actually I think it means this, or that I think it means that. It was
Sure.
helpful for me if you do this, and and I think that like it's sort of reminiscent of like an older way of working where like in Stanislavski and Chekhov, and like we're going to rehearse the cherry orchard for 3 months, and then
Sure.
we're going to take it on the, or August
Oh,
Wilson plays, we're going to
Yeah.
take it on the
Hmm.
road for a year before it
hmm
gets to Broadway. Like it's such
Yeah.
a gift to
Yeah.
be able to, because this is such rich material.
Yeah. There's a couple things I want to mention or take off from what you said. You're absolutely right that this time is a luxury, and I think it's kind of about identifying for especially newer or younger or emerging artists. This is all the work that you don't see the professionals doing probably at home because they know they don't have time to do it at rehearsal. So it's all the questions they need to be asking themselves, all the things they need to be exploring and thinking about, and going, okay, well, what do I have time to actually ask the director, or does the director even want to talk about this stuff, or do they
Right?
just
Do
want
we
to tell
get a
me where to go?
dramaturg?
Yeah, or the director's just like, go from stage right to stage left, sit down on the couch, and then leave. And it's like, okay, that's the level of discussion we'll have. So it may be, you're absolutely right. All these things that you have to do on your own time or internally or just, but it gives hopefully artists of all levels watching a number of different things to think about, of different ways to approach the character and explore it. So yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think and now I'm trying to think of the second half of what you were talking about, all the time that you don't have, and then yes, that it's what has been wonderful that I have not had to force at all is that it's been an extraordinarily collaborative experience by every group. There's never been a top-down structure of I'm the teacher or I'm the director and I'm going to tell everybody like what to do. And that is a really beautiful element. I think you're right, Meaghan, that does harken back to a different way of doing these things, that people, it was more collaborative, and people were gravitated toward that because it's like, yeah, we get to talk about all this stuff. And I don't know if, even though I'm playing this character, I don't necessarily have all the right answers. So if you have a good thing for me to use, like, please tell me. I'm open to that. So yeah, no, some great points. I did want to talk, I know a little bit about, I know we've talked about it a little bit over the weeks, or you guys have talked about it more specifically, but I'd love to hear from Nick. Uh, you know, you mentioned your love for the play, a little bit tonight and over the other weeks. Um, were there specific things that you as a director were curious about with these two scenes that you wanted to either explore more or just take the time to explore as a director because you knew them, you're familiar with them, you enjoyed them, but you wanted to kind of see what was going on? Were you surprised by, all the layers you found in there?
Yeah, I really, it was the relationship between these two characters. The reason that I chose these scenes, and they were the only ones that I could choose where there wasn't other players,
Sure.
messengers, and there are, we got to read some of the other ones today a little
Hmm.
bit just to but yeah, I wanted to explore the love. I wanted to explore the beauty of their relationship because it's something, it gets played off as two people that have great sex a lot. And it really, and a lot of people, a lot of the films that you see explore that, but there's something incredibly romantic about these two people that is based on respect. And I really wanted to dig into that a little bit. And I really enjoy this play because I feel like there's a perfection to the poetry of it that the I mean, it exists in pieces of many of Shakespeare's other plays, but for me, this play from front to back, from top to tail, is extraordinarily beautiful regarding all of the characters, the relationships with each other, and the poetry itself. It's all in the words. I just think Shakespeare was really on fire when he wrote this show. I heard a quote over last week that that I think is true, but an actor said to Tom Stoppard, he said, "Do you want me to make this line funny?" And Stoppard replied, "I've done it for you." And I think that says a lot about what we're doing here. A lot of these things is in the words, but finding it is a challenge. And I really, I got to work with these two wonderful actors that I respect so much, and I knew that we would be able to dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah,
And
that's
I think
great.
that
That's
we did.
wonderful. Yeah, and I agree with you about the beauty of the play. Another one of the scenes that we've done here. It's I think probably one of the lesser known scenes, and may even be cut in some productions, but it's later in the play where Macduff is kind of testing Malcolm, and then Ross comes in and tells him what's been transpiring and happening, and just the levels of what's going on between the first two characters and just the emotion that everybody's experiencing. And it's you know for a lesser known scene, it's just like, wow, this is a really beautiful scene. And there's a lot going on with these characters, but they're not the titular characters. So sometimes I think those scenes are kind of overlooked, sadly, because there's some really great poetry in there, and there's some really great stuff to work on in mine. And for those watching, you can go back. Actually, no, I think that's in the archive, right? I got to take that. I got to get that out of the archive. But so hopefully we'll share that scene again. And Nick, you were part of that scene. Yes.
I
I'm
was,
sorry.
yeah.
I have like 50 people floating through my head
Yeah,
at
no,
any
you
given
do.
time. So
No, that exploration of that scene is kind of what brought this on too. I was reminded how beautiful this play was.
yeah.
Excuse me. And I played Malcolm in that
Mhm.
that workshop, and often Malcolm is overlooked as well, and he's just got
Yeah.
he's an extraordinary character, and that is the scene where Macduff has this beautiful speech, and like Meaghan said, some of the most beautiful lines in all of Shakespeare are in this play. No
Yeah.
question about it.
Uh, Mark, I would love to hear. I'm sorry. Was there something you wanted to chime in with on that point, or
Me? No, go for it.
okay? All right. I wanted to hear. I know we heard over the weeks different things that you were either wrestling with or trying to figure out, but I'm curious. Specifically with the role of Macbeth, was there something that really surprised you about either the character or your connection to it, or how you related to the part? Was there anything in your journey over these weeks that come to mind?
Well, I think um, you put out that teaser video where I was talking about
Sure, the morality. Yes,
struggle
yeah.
with, yeah, and I think that was actually much more of a challenge than I was anticipating.
Mm,
Um, because I think I had an archetypal idea of what this character was.
sure.
And, as I was saying earlier in the workshop tonight, I had kind of an 11th hour awakening on
Hmm.
how to jump into that first speech. And that really solved a lot of that for me because
Mm,
it was the idea of um, the warrior and the philosopher
right.
struggling and the greed or the ambition. And so it became less about how do I drum up all this like murderous intent, and more you started to shift into a guy who through a codependent relationship gets convinced this is the right thing to do, and then realizes,
Right.
no, I've lost it. And it became a lot more approachable. And I find this to be true, with all of this classical theater stuff, is the more you can deal with making it playable for you as an actor. Where do I come from? Where do I meet this character? And start to erase where I think my limits, where my outer edges are, and
Sure.
erase the preconceived idea that I have about the archetypal way of doing it. And the more I can connect to where my humanity is, and then start to sub in for, well, what if you lost that humanity? What
Right.
would take you to that point? It became a lot more tangible for me. And also, last time, even though that got to be a little bit like a track workout, like doing all of the consonant work and
Sure.
the real nitty-gritty of it, reminding myself to get out of the way of the language as much as I can is also like it. There's so much of a heartbeat in Macbeth's speeches and soliloquies, and even when the meter's not perfect, if you ride it, it leads you to these kind of they're in jammed lines. Well, they're in jammed thoughts too. And the
Right.
more you
Right.
allow that to filter in and start to just lead you, the more you trust it and get out of your way, get out of your own way, I think is
Yeah.
so the two big lessons I think this has really been helpful with.
That's well. That's great to hear. I'm thrilled to hear that response. And I think you raise a really um, fascinating point for actors to think about is, how much do characters wrestle with what they need to do, or is it just this is what I need to do, and they're not conflicted about it. That like Macbeth is already somebody that kills people, and so this is another person he needs to kill, and leading, of course he does talk about his conflict about it, but there are those characters that it seems so far from what you or I might feel like, I could be comfortable with. But for these characters, it's a different, like they're just comfortable with it. They have a different uh, uh, comfort zone, for lack of a better thing.
Sure.
Their edges are a little bit different, so they don't wrestle with it in the same way that you or I, just our normal day life would wrestle. Like, oh my god, I have to kill,
Yeah.
all these people. It's just part of what he did. And you mentioned Coriolanus. It's the same kind. That's
Yeah.
just who he is, who he's been raised to be, and through experience has become.
You
Um,
just sparked two thoughts on that though, that if you don't mind,
sure,
I'll
yeah,
share. One is the relationship to death when he was writing these plays. People had a much more familiar experience with death than I think we do now. And um, I think there was more of a casual nature of walking down the street and watching, uh, animals get slaughtered for sale and there was just a much,
sure,
the
sure.
plague, all of the stuff, there was just,
Hmm.
it was much more in your face. And I think lines probably were easier to blur in those days, maybe than they are now. That's just one idea. And then the other idea that it just struck me when you were saying that is I went to school for theater, and particularly at Lambda for classical theater, but I've spent most of my career in film and television. And the laser-like understanding of what you're saying you need to have in film and TV, I think when you start to approach this, one, it makes for a lot of work. You have to do a lot of work to understand each syllable, but it opens up your imagination to all of the intention. Even though I think we would say that in most of the time when you're on stage playing Shakespeare, you're not worried so much about subtext. It's all there, it's overt. And if you're lying, the audience knows you're lying. But you, as the actor, have to fill up all of that. You have to fill it up with your imagination. You have to fill it up with imagery
Hmm.
that activates something in you. And so I think that's the other thing that's been really helpful too, is really just getting into the granular what, who, how, where, what am I talking about,
Sure,
and then
sure.
I
letting it
always
percolate.
I always hate that when people say that there's no subtext in Shakespeare, because I think there's a ton of subtext in Shakespeare, but
Sure.
that's another thought for another day. Another thing I wanted to say that
Yeah,
that
please,
Mark,
Megan.
you were talking about and we've been talking about how they give up their humanity. And the thing that struck me just now is the end of the play where they both go insane and die. And and Macbeth gets killed. You can't. There is no way to give up your humanity. You can try, but you never can.
Can't
And I
escape
think
it.
that's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
what a like a strangely beautiful lesson that this play teaches that way.
Absolutely.
Mm.
The
That like
conclusion
all of the
we didn't
forces of
come to till
hell.
now. I love that.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
as cold as you might try to be, as dispassionate as you might try to be, you're human. It's going to come through. It's going to still be with you. You can't really divorce yourself from that. Um, Meaghan, I would love to hear if you have more you want to share about your journey briefly with Lady Macbeth. If there were things that coming into it you thought about and then discovered it from the character, or things that surprised you about the character. Would anything come to mind?
I think I mentioned it already today, but when I came in, I think the thing that I said that I wanted to accomplish doing this was to keep her humanity front and center, and like keep their
Mm.
relationship front and center. And I think we've all kind of come to this place where, and I think particularly because we've got words and screens and not
Mhm.
production values, that, and we don't have the rest of the play where you get the supernatural elements, where you get the
Right.
crowds, where you get the ghosts, and all the other things that, like, I feel like if I were given the opportunity to play her now, I feel like I have such an anchor of who she is and what she loves and what's important to her, that I feel like I could walk into a production and like come in with a really strong and maybe slightly different Lady Macbeth than have seen a lot of, because I've been given
Mhm.
this gift of like, okay, let's sit and talk these two and Nick, I thought they were really good scenes to do
Mhm.
together and to pair. And because we're not staging them, because we're not doing a scene study class in a place like it, there's, by stripping it down so much and having so much dialogue about it, I feel like it's really like we've gotten to the essence of the humanity in Macbeth. And I think if we were all to go do it, what we're doing then is we're laying on the supernatural on top of the humanity, and we're laying the religion and the religious consequences of their action on top of the humanity. And so I feel like we have this like bed of life that's really fun.
And that relatability that you guys created makes it more terrifying.
Yeah.
Like that humanity that you put in it, like Nathan said, all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, because they're not on a pedestal, they're suddenly real people, like Nathan was
Right.
saying,
Yeah,
which
and this is what makes Macbeth such a very different character than Coriolanus. It's why there's a different play. Coriolanus might not have as many qualms about this, or he might not be as
yeah.
challenged. And it's like yeah, we want to see this guy who's really good at his job be really tortured by what is he like the temptation of power, and what does that do? What does that do to somebody? So yeah, no, it's really exciting just to as we've all been talking about, just to have the time to really explore this in such a deep, profound way. And I want to thank all of you guys for all of your time and great work over the weeks. And thank you again to Gideon Rappaport for being our dramaturg on this journey here. And yes, so just honoring everybody's time. I think we can kind of wrap it up here, but it's great. I hope all of you, whether collectively or individually, find ways to continue to work on this material. It would be really exciting to see where you continue to go with it. I'm sure it'd be exciting for each of you to figure out where you continue to go with it. And for those watching, yeah, come on back. Like I said, the next session we're going to be doing is a couple scenes from The Winter's Tale, when Leontes has Hermione arrested, and then her in the trial. Really great. That's a scene from the archive that we're pulling out. Jeffrey Wade directed. Christopher Guillemette, Shannon Lee Claire, and J. Paul Nicholas are working on that. And Gideon is the dramaturg for that session as well. So more great stuff ahead. Subscribe, bell notification, all those good things. Tell your friends, and we'll keep doing what we're doing here in the rehearsal room. So thank you again, Mark and Meaghan and Nick and Gideon. Thank you guys all so much for your time, and we'll see you next time in the rehearsal room.
Thank you.
Wow.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
guys.
This has been great.
Bravo.